Welcome to my inaugural interview for Teach the Geek interviews on the Teach the Geek YouTube channel. Today, my name, first I should probably introduce myself. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for STEM professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. You can learn more about the course at teachthegeek.com. Again, that is teachthegeek.com. I'm really happy to have for my first guest on the channel, Justin Shaifer. He's a science communicator, an editor, a producer. He seems to does quite a bit of things and does that sign, that Vulcan sign that I can't do with my fingers. He can do it. He's a NASA and NOAA scholarship recipient. He graduated from Hampton University with a degree in marine and environmental science. After serving as student body president at Hampton, he dove headfirst into his dream of making science fun. He's given talks at the Smithsonian Museum, multiple universities, and is featured on several radio segments and podcasts for his contributions to STEM. He works to spread STEM literacy to youth, regardless of socioeconomic status. I'm so glad to have him here. Welcome, Justin, to my channel.
Thanks so much, Neil. Really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you as well. First question. So where did your interest in science come from?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I'd say I've always kind of naturally been interested in. A long time I didn't understand why. And I know some of your later questions might address the second part of that. So I'll kind of address that further down the line. But where I grew up, in Chicago, there wasn't a lot. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. There weren't a lot of things around me to stimulate my interest in science and cultivate it into what I would consider a competent STEM career, especially at the early stages of my life. But we can get to that. We can cross that bridge when we get to it.
All right, great, cool. So, okay, a little bit about myself. So I worked in medical devices for a number of years as a product development engineer. I have degrees in engineering, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, but I wouldn't have gotten to that point if I had listened to a physics professor or physics teacher when I was in high school. It must have been my last year of high school, senior year, and I was taking a physics course, and one of the physics teacher called me up after class one day, and he asked me what I wanted to do when I was done high school, and I said I wanted to study engineering, and he told me that I should probably consider another profession.
Was there any particular reasoning?
I guess he didn't think that I was doing well enough in the class, so I guess
so because you didn't do well in his class with his teaching style.
Yeah, man. I mean, he didn't know anything about the rest of my classes. I was pretty much straight A's and maybe a couple of B's here and there. Eventually, what ended up happening is my father ended up going to the school and having a conference with him and the principal. And the principal told my father that it's a teacher's job to give students reality checks.
Right.
That apparently was my reality check. I wasn't supposed to study engineering, but look at me now. So out of curiosity, did you have anybody in your life before you ended up studying STEM that were detractors? And if you did, how'd you deal with that? Yeah,
so so funny that you mentioned that you're in engineering. My grandfather was actually an engineer. That he created a circuit in the VCR, I found out. And this was actually right before I got to college. So up until that point, I was really discouraged from getting into science and technology because I was separated from that side of the family, raised by a single mom. And so my grandfather was on my dad's side. He wasn't that connected. He passed away long before this. So up until that time, growing up on the south side of Chicago, I had a lot of people around me just telling me that the stuff I was interested in wasn't that cool. Especially when I was really young. I was kind of like the geeky kid that knew the order of at that point, 9 planets and their respective moons. And people were like, shut up, Justin, that stuff doesn't matter. Like, we don't care about this, man. Like talk about something that's relevant or do something that's funny. And so with that societal pressure, I ended up getting into more juvenile delinquent stuff. STEM was never really made culturally relevant to me in the classroom, and I didn't really connect a lot in my classes. So I was a straight A student starting off, kind of like you, but I got pretty much anything math or science related, I started doing very poorly in, especially towards 7th and 8th grades, because I didn't think the information was made for me. I didn't think it was accessible for me.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely, I can definitely relate. I guess, I can see how that can be. So eventually, I guess you didn't listen to those detractors. You went on, and I mentioned in the intro, you got your degree in marine environmental science. Out of curiosity, how come you picked that particular degree?
Right. So at the time, like I said, right before I got to college, I discovered this patent that my grandfather had on the circuit in the VCR. And so that kind of gave me a light of hope, if you will. And after that, I kind of was like, okay, maybe I can do science or technology stuff. But I was always kind of like the talk in front of everybody guy at school. Like I did all the morning announcements and narration of all these different plays and things. So I knew that I could advocate, and I knew I liked science, and I knew that marine environmental science was in a major need of science advocacy. So at the time, I was thinking about getting into environmental law, because that mixes two things I was naturally interested in: talking in front of everybody and science. And so it was one of the most politically applicable sciences. So that's why I initially got into marine environmental science.
Oh, okay. So I guess, is marine law now something that you're not interested in pursuing?
No, not necessarily. So I ended up graduating from Hampton with the highest degree in my major, went on. So I had an opportunity to go to a law school, actually visited a couple Ivy Leagues, and was looking at, actually like having detailed conversations with folks. I actually didn't end up applying, and it's hard for me to even logically walk through that, because there wasn't really like a logical reason for me not to follow the next step of this plan that I had for years. But it was just this intuitive pull away from that and towards more, I'd say, creative pursuits. And so, that's kind of how I got here in a nutshell, but I can kind of walk you through the journey more, I guess, in response to some of your questions.
Yeah, so I went on your website, Fascinate Sci, and I looked at your YouTube video about eating bugs, and I was like, man, I don't know about all that, brother. But tell me a bit about Fascinate Sci. What exactly is it?
So Fascinate Sci LLC and Fascinate Incorporated are the two organizations I started to make kids, specifically underrepresented kids, excited about science and technology. And so we have a couple of ways that we do that. One of the big things is through our YouTube platform, which is we have engaging STEM videos. We also have the animated series, which I produce and edit as well. And I voice a few of the characters too. It's called Hood Science. And so, we basically make science relevant to those kids by giving them the cultural vernacular, the culturally relevant vernacular that they're used to, and then applying that to scientific concepts. So that's one way. The other thing is the project that we have with the Magic Cool Bus. And so those are all under the umbrella.
Yeah, I read about that too. This Magic Cool Bus. That's a great name, by the way. So what exactly is Magic Cool Bus?
So the Magic Cool Bus it's an idea right now. We've raised a few $1,000s for it. We've had events at Microsoft, looking to have some at Google next, and a few other maker spaces across the New York City area. But what we want to do is fill a bus with cutting edge science and tech gadgets, go to underrepresented schools across the country, and get the kids excited about STEM using culturally relevant content. And so a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, wow, this seems like a really cool thing that will get the kids excited. But I don't want to be like a traveling circus act, right? Where, in the microwave attention spans of these Generation Z kids, if you're here today and gone tomorrow, they'll forget about you next week. Right. So I want to have stuff that they can hold on to. So that's why we developed the online platforms. And what that's going to be able to do is develop a community of underrepresented early career STEM professionals that will be able to connect with some of these kids as big brothers and big sisters and things of the sort.
That's a really admirable goal of having this kind of bus. So this bus that you said, you're in the New York City area. Is this bus going to just focus on that area, or is it going to be national?
So we began piloting our programs in the New York City area for now because they're very similar. So our demographic is middle and high school students and middle and high school students that are underrepresented in STEM fields, which is basically African American and Latinx kids. A lot of the people that are in our target demographic are in New York City, so we're running a lot of pilot programs with these kids. we figure as we improve the program, we'll iteratively build it out and cover more regions of the contiguous United States.
Okay, and I'm assuming that when you do branch it out, there's going to be multiple buses just throughout the country.
Ideally, yeah. So this is my utopian vision. But yeah, so we'll probably do something scrappy first. With the first, I'd say $50,000 that we raise, get some in-kind donations, and get this thing going on a small scale and show that it works. But ultimately, man, I'm working with a 3D modeler right now. We want to build something that looks like a Batmobile on a bus. and so something that the kids will see and it'll make their jaws drop. And they'll be like, now this is STEM. STEM is not just, a pasty white nerd in a lab coat with goggles or glasses on.
Right.
It's also this kind of dope stuff. And this is how you can get a career. Once I've got their attention, this is how you can get a career. And this is how you can start your life with STEM or save your life.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one question I have about that. So as you mentioned, African-American, Latinx kids are underrepresented in STEM, and basically everybody else is not underrepresented. Do you think the reason they're not underrepresented is because what's the best way to put this? I don't know, because I'm Black, so I don't know how it is for other people, but for those non-underrepresented groups, do they have to? I know you mentioned that the underrepresented kids need to see that STEM is cool. So these non-underrepresented kids, do they just see STEM as cool already? And why would the underrepresented kids not see it as cool?
Right. So I think that's a great question. So what I'd say is that kind of points at some of the deeper problems that we're trying to solve with what we're doing. So, and not only I think the kids, they may or may not see STEM as cool, but what they do see is someone that looks like them further along the path. Okay. They have role models that, have their same features that are in their positions. And they also have family members, a lot of times, that are in these positions that will create pipelines and push them forward and uplift them. Whereas in a lot of the Black and Latinx communities, when we think of a scientist, I actually read this really interesting research study not too long ago about how basically when around the age of when everyone gets about 16 years old, everyone's their mental image of a scientist, when they're asked to draw a scientist, whatever first comes to mind,
Einstein,
male. It's really interesting, but yeah, but I think what that points to is the need for continued mentorship, role models, and pipeline type programs. So that's what we're trying to go after these corporate entities for, because we want to create this community of curated, interested, and passionate folks about STEM that are underrepresented, and say, hey, Google, guess what? We got all the folks that you're looking for to solve your diversity problem right here, and they're just waiting for an opportunity. So
yeah, for sure. When you were talking, I was just remembering back when I was an undergrad, on Saturday mornings, I was a member of the National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE.
Yeah. I wanted to go so bad. I mean, it's coming up this weekend, right? The conference?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to, back when I was an undergrad, we used to go pretty much every year. But, when I was an undergrad, I was a member of NSBE, and myself and a number of other NSBE members, we would have Saturday morning tutoring sessions at one of the university libraries up on I think it was the 14th floor, but we used to do it every Saturday. And we were trying to target, those underrepresented groups. And would you believe that the majority of kids that showed up were not part of those underrepresented groups?
I would.
So
I would. Yeah.
We'd help them, of course, but it was extremely demoralizing when I think about it now. And another time I remember, it was actually my dad. He was at a supermarket, and he just got into a conversation with this woman, and she was saying how her son was struggling in math, and he was telling her about the Saturday morning tutoring program that myself and these other NSBE members were doing down at the school. And she said something along the lines of, well, my son can't go because he has baseball practice around that time. I remember my father coming home and telling me that, and him saying, like, what? So what's more important? Is this kid doing good in math or baseball practice? Is he going to play in the pros? Is he, is he that good? I mean, it's a mentality thing, I think, when it comes to STEM.
Yeah, and I think that's another huge part of the issue: disengaged parents and their priorities. And it may be difficult for someone like me to come in. I'm more on the young side of things. It may be difficult for someone like me to come in and say, look, you're parenting all wrong. This is how you need to do it.
Right.
But what I can even say from my experience is having like surroundings and even a parent that she did not convince me. She did absolutely everything she could. But still, she wasn't naturally as interested in STEM as I was. But what did help along the path were people that looked like me or that were mentors that I could have more casual conversations with than those. And that's the kind of the mentality that we're trying to approach these kids with, is we don't want to be, and even so I developed and teach a STEM curriculum at a charter school now. And my whole thing is I always have the kids call me Justin, which is really unconventional, I've been told. But I don't ever try to have the finger-wagging parent effect of, well, you should be in STEM because there's lots of career opportunities and all the jobs are going in the tech sector. And like, kids don't really care about that stuff in the demographic that we're trying to serve. Right. What's better is if they see a cooler, at least in my experience, once again, and the experience of the folks on our volunteer base, is that if they see someone that looks like them that they think is kind of cool, and then they're doing something in science and technology, then that has a much more profound influential effect on what the kid ends up maybe being interested in further along the line. So
excellent. Well, you mentioned the Magic Cool Bus, you mentioned Fascinate Sci, and obviously the target market there, as you mentioned, was middle and high school kids. Do you have any ideas on how we can improve science literacy among people that have already graduated, basically adults that are in the population?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple things. So I think video content is more engaging with STEM now than ever before. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Kurzgesagt. It's this really, I don't know why they named it that, but they're very popular now. There's these guys overseas that make these animated videos about different science concepts, super engaging, keeps your attention all the way through. And I feel like, for the average person, you're not going to want to take a deep dive into a peer-reviewed journal about science.
Probably not.
So and kind of knowing that that's usually the case, at least in my experience, there's so much pop sci out there that you can look at. Kurzgesagt's a great one. Vsauce is another good one. These are YouTube channels on the internet that you can check out. And I mean, the only problem I say with some of those things is you have to be careful about science communicators in general, and I'm one of them. Mm-hmm. So us science communicators, we oftentimes have a tendency to speak with conviction. And even Neil deGrasse Tyson can be guilty of this sometimes too. And there's even some videos out there about it, where you can speak with conviction about science that you don't necessarily have a specialization in or a PhD in. And when that happens in the digital age, it can be very problematic, because that message, especially from a figurehead like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Michael Stevens, creator of Vsauce, can be taken and then transmitted virally, right? So, somebody says, well, the sky is actually orange and here's why, and then that message gets disseminated out, then that can become a problem. So what I like to do, and this is just another thing for the average person to do, Snopes.com is a really good site for combating misinformation, just in case you want to be sure that the facts are right if you're trying to then spread the things that you saw in a cool video.
Right. Well, yeah, those are great ideas for people that have that interest and they're looking to learn more. Do you have any ideas for people that don't necessarily have that interest and have more pressing priorities, and they say, well, yeah, climate change is a problem, but I have to figure out how to pay my rent.
Yeah, those people that don't have time for science, right? It's always. It's hard for me to give that advice about adults right now. I think it's pretty difficult to reshape the minds of adults. Even like scientifically, neuroplasticity is lower. Right. But with kids, I think I have a little bit more ease because I know their cultural context. So it's hard for me to give advice of what people can do for themselves, but I know what we're doing for kids that's working, and it's when we align ourselves to the things that they're already attached to, right? Like a lot of kids in the areas we serve love basketball. So if we say, here's this physics experiment you can do with a basketball, you basically are demonstrating projectile motion every time you shoot a ball towards a hoop, and things like that. Or like they they like rap music. Well, if you want to be a sound engineer and make beats, which a lot of the kids do, or you like hair products, there's a chemist behind there that's designed. So it's like, so yeah, I know that's not like actionable advice for people that are not engaged, but I will say, like, anytime that you think it's not that relevant to you, usually if you go under the hood of something that you're interested in, there's some science there.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, I asked the question, but I was curious what your answer was going to be, because I don't have an answer. I really don't know what to do about people that, you know, are saying, you know, I got bigger priorities right now, climate change and, you know, all this other stuff that's going on in the world.
Yeah, I agree, man. As much as I'd love to change their minds, like holistically on a big picture scale, I think that there is we have more efficacy when we do it with the kids, because it's like their minds are still more impressionable. They're still able to be molded, and I think that they can be pushed in a direction and be more open-minded to listening when the view conflicts with their own. There's some really interesting stuff on the internet now about social media reinforcing whatever biases we have, because the algorithms just continue to show us stuff that we'll agree with because we click on it more. Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting. That like the brain used to be like hardened in one direction. It might be even more hardened in one direction and reinforced over time.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some ways that people can support Fascinate Sci and the Magic Cool Bus? Sure.
So the Magic Cool Bus, we have a generosity site. That's not even the easiest way. The easiest way is we have a Venmo and Cash App, so you can literally type in Magic Cool Bus on either of those two apps, Square Cash or Venmo, and you can donate that way to our nonprofit fundraiser, which we're still raising money to get the bus off the ground. The other thing is our generosity website, which is basically Google Magic Cool Bus, and then everything will come up. We should be one of the top 2 or 3 search results. There is no other Magic Cool Bus doing what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Is there anything else you'd like people to know about what you're doing?
Sure. So I really always want to make it very clear why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I just don't. I made a couple of potentially illogical decisions to get here. So I was making almost 6 figures as a technology consultant before I quit my job to do this full time. I'm making a lot less money than that now. But for me, it was really painful for me to sit in any setting, having made it, quote unquote, and not doing work that I believed was impactful on a very consistent basis. Like, they had these kind of weekend things that you could do. And that was cool. But for me, I'm motivated by doing things that are fulfilling and to me. So that's why I did what I did. I mean, I'm part of the group that suffered from this growing up. I think I would have been way further along the path if I had someone like me show me the Magic Cool Bus when I was in 6th grade, So I'm absolutely thinking about how that's going to affect our future generation of kids, man. And I can't wait to get this bus to all the kids. And it doesn't matter if the school can afford it. I can't wait to make it happen.
No doubt. That sounds real cool. So, that was the last question I had. How can people contact you?
Sure. So if you want some emails, have any inquiries about that, we have an email address, info@fascinatesci.com. That's info at FASCINATESCI.com. And then we also are all over Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. If you just type in Fascinate Sci. So once again, that's FASCINATESCI. And that's the same on all those.
All right, cool. Yeah. So this was really interesting to finding out more about the Magic Cool Bus and Fascinate Sci. Thanks so much for being my first guest on the YouTube channel, Justin. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Neil. Awesome.
Yeah. So for those of you who are listening, thank you for listening. For those of you who are listening after we have done this interview, thank you for listening. Basically, anyone's listening, thank you for listening. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for STEM professionals. The first offering of the platform is an online public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about the course, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. I'll spell it just like you spelled yours. TEACHTHEGEEK teachthegeek.com. That's right. That's how you spell it. teachthegeek.com. Again, thank you all for listening. Until next time, take care.